Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Sports with Mattymo Podcast. And boy, oh boy, we have a really big treat for you. Now, before I introduce this person, I want to let everyone know the most Canadian thing in the world to me is junior hockey. And today, my guest today is the COO of Achievement Hockey Advising, Braeden Pearl. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. So what made you want to start this hockey business and all these YouTube channels you post about like junior hockey, NCAA, junior major, the pros? What made you want to start this?
Yeah, it's funny. I never, it was never an intentional thing to do. It kind of happened by accident. So I graduated from Trine University. I did my undergrad there. And
Yeah.
when I came back home, I was actually doing a bit of, I was in between like my career, what I want to do next. And I was doing a bit of substitute teaching at a local high school. And there was some kids there, like they had a prep team there. It was Le Sommet in the Hawkesbury area. They had a decent prep team there. I'd hop on the ice with them, almost every day as part of my job. And, a lot of them would ask me questions like, hey, like, how'd you end up, going to play junior? How'd that all work? How'd you get it? Like, how'd you play NCAA D3? What was that like? And then a lot of them started asking me, hey, can you help me with this team? Help me with that team. And I did it for free for quite a few months. And I started getting referrals from players, from their parents and all that stuff. And after a while, I was pretty busy. I was doing it all for free. So I started saying, you know what, I might start charging for my time here, So started that up, called a buddy of mine that I played hockey with at Western New England. He's our lead advisor now, Dave DeChevy. Said, hey, like, do you want to start this thing? It's pretty busy and a lot of players need help. And he was on the same page because like him, we both had, quite like not great experiences with family advisors in the past in our junior careers. And we kind of want to do it right at this point. So we started it up. For the first year, it was like mainly referrals, all that stuff. And a lot of the same questions kept coming up over and over again from our clients. So we're like, you know what, let's just post, let's package these videos, post them on YouTube, then our clients can watch it. The intention was never to, post these videos weekly and have a bunch of random people watch it and stuff. But as time went on, we started posting, it started getting a little bit more traction, and then it kind of snowballed into the business we have today. So it was never an intention, but it kind of happened by accident. It was a nice little accident that happened.
Yeah, like basically, I do love watching junior hockey, and plus my brother Corey Moses, he played prep school for Bridgeton Academy, located in Bridgeton, Maine. And then after, like, he was getting offers from D3 schools, but the thing that he didn't choose because he was getting offered, like, he got into John Molson business, but he thought if you went D3 as a rookie or a freshman, you won't get much ice time, and then it brings down the player's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he got offered to play a junior AAA for St. Jerome Panthers, but he decided to like focus on school, play junior A minor hockey for Dollard Desormeaux, and play with his friends.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to know, like, if you want to go like the NCAA route, which like league is the best league to go to? Because you have all these junior leagues out there, and if you like go major junior, you lose your eligibility.
No, for sure. If you want to go NCAA, I mean, we've made a video on it where it's we kind of rank the leagues in different order, and a few of them are pretty close. And it can be controversial. Some people like saying different things, but I think you have to avoid major junior. There's specific rules that go into that. If you play there for too long, if you play an exhibition game, if you play more than 48 hours at the camp without covering your own expenses, at that point, you typically lose your eligibility. There's ways around it, but it gets really nuanced and you need an advisor, somebody guiding you throughout the process there. In terms of after major junior, the best one to go to is the USHL. But we just made a video on that actually a couple of weeks ago, outlining how difficult it really is to make the USHL. It's really, they take the best players, and 90 to 95% of those guys end up going D1. And most of those guys are actually committed before they even play in the USHL. So it's a bit of a different beast. If you can play in it, great. But if not, the next ones to look at are like the BCHL or the NAHL. They're usually pretty neck and neck. Some people give the edge to the NA, some give to the BC. I think it really depends year by year. But those are the next two that I would look at. Afterwards, the AJHL probably slots in number 3 in terms of a league to go to. And then after the AJ, I would say, CCHL, OJHL, NCDC, they all kind of go hand in hand. Some people give the edge to those leagues, like one of those leagues over the other, but I think they're all pretty close. And then it kind of goes SJ, MJ in Manitoba afterwards. And then it kind of just goes down from there to tier 3 hockey, NOJHL, all that.
Yeah, like basically, like if I want to watch good hockey, junior hockey, a close team to me in the CCHL is the Hawkesbury Hawks or Cornwall Colts. And I love going to those games. Like I know the owner of the Brockville Braves, Dustin Tarlin, and like he helped my brother. Like he did this summer junior team called the West Island Braves, and my brother played on the team. And I think if my brother never played on that team, he would never gone to prep school because that team went to the Chowder Cup in Boston, Massachusetts. And boy, that was a fun experience. Just to see all the players, see some USHL players in that. It was crazy.
Yeah, you see how good the hockey really is. And when you see the CCHL, like the caliber is quite good. The players are very skilled. It's not the most physical league, but the skill is definitely there for sure.
Oh, sure. Now, another question. I know this Junior B League gets viewed like a Junior A League, and that's the GOJHL, the Greater Ontario Junior Hockey League. I want to know, like, that compared to the Ontario Junior Hockey League. Like, what's the difference? I know one is Junior A and one is Junior B, but some people say they're like neck and neck.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because a lot of people like the GOJHL is a question mark in their head. They're both very similar in a way that they're both very big leagues. They have a lot of teams in them. And I would say the same principle applies to both where, the top teams are really good and then the bottom teams aren't so good. Like it gets watered down a little bit. I think the OJHL still higher caliber overall than the GOJHL, just because it's junior A and it's a good league. But the top teams in the GOJHL could compete against like the probably the mid teams in the OJHL. Like the top teams in the GOJHL are very good. What a big difference too is that in the OJHL, guys practice pretty much every day. Most teams are pretty serious when it comes to that. But in the GOJHL, the bottom to the mid teams, they only practice like sometimes once or twice a week. So it's really it's a little bit less serious at that point. Guys have like jobs, they go to school. It's a bit of a different mindset. But the top teams in the GOJHL, they practice pretty much every day. They're very serious. And they have some guys that came down from major junior. So they're really, really good. And in the GOJHL, what you see is they pay these guys to stay on their team to be the top teams in the league. So it's a bit of a different beast. In terms of NCAA exposure, probably not NCAA D1, but NCAA D3, there's some, especially if you play on one of these top teams. If you do well there, you'll have like some good D3 schools looking at you. A lot of D3 schools don't really look at that league, but if you have an advisor that's marketing you and you did well in that league, you can get a decent D3 commitment out of it.
Yeah, basically, I heard like more players in the OJHL, they go NCAA, so they don't want to go OHL to lose their eligibility because just one step on the ice, your eligibility is gone.
That's it. If you play an exhibition game in major junior, just an exhibition game alone, you can lose if not your 4 years of NCAA eligibility, you can lose at least 1 year. So it's something that most players don't even risk. They might just go to the camp. Some choose just not to go to the camps to keep their eligibility.
Yeah, that's why I heard like a lot of GOJHL players go OHL because the OJHL ones don't want to go there because they get committed probably at a young age to go to like Vermont, Boston, maybe a school in Minnesota, and they just don't want to take that chance.
Yeah, some of the most of the OJ guys, the routes typically NCAA. Some of the young OJHL players, they play there for a year, then they go to major junior. But with the GOJHL, what you see a lot is that guys that play major junior, they get offered to pay paid a lot of money by these top GOJHL teams, and they go down and they play their 19th or 20-year-old year. For that team and get paid a decent amount. So that's the main reason why they kind of jump down.
Now there's a league in Quebec. It's called Quebec Junior Hockey League, and I'm actually going to see a game today. It's going to be Terrebonne Cobras. That's like one of the top teams every year against the Montreal Phoenix, located in Pierrefonds. I want to know like more about the league, because a lot of scouts don't view that league as a high league. But when I watch games, I see some hidden talent in some of the players that people don't see.
No, for sure. It's actually the league's very skilled. The pace sometimes could be a bit lower, but the league overall is very skilled, and it's on par with, like, if I were to compare it to like the Maritime League or the Manitoba League, like could be a little bit of nuance there, but overall, like, the skill level is good. And but the problem is in Quebec, it's a very big mindset towards Q or bust. So a lot of these guys, they go to the queue for when they're 17 or they're 18. They play a few games and they get sent down, and they play in the junior AAA league, and their careers kind of end there. And that's why it's kind of called the graveyard league for that
Yeah,
reason.
I heard that before.
Yeah, so it's known as that, but it's unfortunate because there are some guys who just played in that league that didn't go to the queue that could easily play NCAA D3 that are good enough. But it's just scouts don't go up to that league because they know the Quebec mindset. When it comes to going NCAA, it's very anti NCAA still in Quebec. It's starting to get more traction in the Montreal area, in the West Island area, all that stuff. But if you go north of Montreal, if you go like Quebec City, Trois-Rivières, and north of that, there's really no talk of NCAA there. So for that reason, it's not that scouted. But like the Maritime League, the Quebec League, all these leagues that are good but aren't that scouted, if you have a good advisor or somebody, or if you have a good contact of any sort, and you get your name and your video out there to NCAA coaches, some will probably bite, because I've seen guys commit out of those leagues. You just have to be very active in your efforts.
Exactly. Like I know a player played for St. Jerome, and he committed to Colgate, I believe, a couple of years ago. This is when like St. Jerome was drawing like big crowds.
Yeah.
They don't draw much when they move to the new arena.
Yeah, I mean, our like Stefano Quintali, so one of our advisors, he played D1 at Mercyhurst, and he played in the junior AAA league his whole life. The only reason he got that commit is because he went and played for Team Canada, and the D1 school saw him there. He was ineligible because he played some games in Major Junior, but because the D1 team saw him on Team Canada, one of them, Mercyhurst, was willing to put up with the eligibility and all that stuff. He only had to redshirt for a year, and then he was able to play Mercyhurst the second and third year.
Yeah, plus he played for Longueuil, who's a really strong team in the AAA hockey league.
Yeah, but I'd say you have to be one of the best if you're going to get a commitment. And he even advises, like, hey, if you can get out of Quebec, definitely do it. It's if your goal is to play NCAA, you're best to get out of that league. Like, if you can play in the Quebec AAA league, you could probably play in the CCHL, the OJHL, or the NCDC, something like that. You're best to get out of Quebec, try and find a good team in a league that's more exposed, and then that way you'll probably get a commitment out of it.
Now I want to know about like, what about like midget AAA? Because I see like lots of midget AAA players in Quebec, they want to either go Q or NCAA, and I know like from the Lions, well, who's the GM, Raj Saltarelli, he tries to steer the players towards NCAA over to Q, because look. This is how I see it. If you think you're good enough and you're going to get drafted in the top rounds, go CHL. If you're not good enough and know you're not getting drafted, go NCAA, and hey, maybe you might get an NHL contract one day, because you never know.
Yeah, typically the way I approach it in a similar way. So whenever we have a client that's playing, midget AAA, or a player asks me about it, parents ask me about it, I tell them, listen, if you're a guy like Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid, you're going to be like a top high-end draft pick in the Q and the NHL one day. Go the major junior route. Nine times out of 10, it's the best way to go. Some players like, Taves, just as an example, Eichel kind of went the NCAA route. But usually the major junior route's best if you're an elite player. If you're a guy that like falls a step below that, that's a high-end draft pick, but probably second, third round, something like that, you have some D1 interest. At that point, it depends what your priorities are, and it depends where you think your progression of growth is going to be. Do you think you're going to be a guy that's really hitting his stride now, that can make a quick rush at the major junior level, do well early, and then get drafted in the NHL and get there early? Or do you think you're more of a late bloomer that needs more time to develop and take a longer route? Then NCAA makes more sense. So for those guys, I'd say that's the thing. If you value education, not all players do. I always like it when players value their education. not only if you don't value education, probably major junior is the best bet because NCAA, like, what's the point if you really don't care about education? But if you do, which most parents do, I would say, and most players do, at that point, it depends. If you're a really good player and you can get a U Sports package, so a 4-year U Sports paid package by your major junior team, then it could make sense to explore that option. Or you could look at, if you get NCAA D1 interest, you could look at those options too and see what makes the most sense for your particular situation. If you really value education, you're not really getting those U Sports packages, and you get some NCAA D1 offers, then it's a no-brainer. You're better to go the NCAA D1 route. But it's not as simple as saying, oh, go major junior or go NCAA. You really have to look at a case-by-case basis, see what the players value, see what kind of projection you see their career to be, and then kind of make a decision from there.
Yeah, because basically, like, we have a lot of U Sport teams in Montreal. We got McGill, we got Concordia, but I don't usually watch those games because, like, I'm used to watching like junior hockey or AHL, American Hockey League. And like the funny part is a lot of the American Hockey League players, a lot of them come from NCAA. And because they see it, it's a step under the NHL. So like some players think, hey, if I'm playing American Hockey League, I could probably get called up to the NHL. And then people view the ECHL like the graveyard league, basically, of pro hockey, but it technically is not. You got a lot of ECHLers.
Exactly. It depends. It's very strong hockey in the coast, and even the SPHL, that's a level under. It's very strong hockey now too.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to see it as a stepping stone. So if you're a top player, usually you go like the AHL or NHL, and you kind of bounce between there. You could go to a really high end Europe league. But if you're a guy that's coming from like NCAA D3, or you're a guy that's coming from U Sports, typically they start in the SPHL, ECHL, try and build their resume, and either keep working their ranks up in North America, or they decide to go to Europe and play in a good league there and get paid well there.
Oh, what about La Ligue American Hockey, like this league in Quebec? Like, what do you consider that league? Like,
it's from what I've seen, it's probably somewhere in between. No, it's probably somewhere close to the SPHL in terms of caliber. You see some really good players there, but it's not like you only practice once, maybe twice a week in that league. Some players don't practice at all. They just play the game. So it's a bit of a semi-pro league, but it's really good hockey. Like I was very surprised when I saw the caliber and the players that are playing there. It's guys that, some guys play in the NHL that play there. Some guys play in the A, some guys play in the coast, some guys played really high-end Europe, high-end NCAA, major junior. They end up there and they get paid pretty decent to play each game there. I know some players that are making a killing playing there. So it's a decent league, especially if you don't have the time to fully commit to hockey. You can go there. But if not, if you have even less time, if you're not wanting to practice, there's some good senior leagues now that are starting to pop up that are kind of like a level below that, but that are still good hockey that actually I play in. So
like we're talking about senior AAA, the East Ontario, I think Super Senior Hockey League.
Yeah.
And I know someone who plays that league who actually played LNH, Sean McMurrow. He's playing for North Center Housing Ice Miners. And also you got the League Hockey Senior Elite that's now starting to pick up. I remember it used to be like a low league. Now it's starting to build up really fast.
Yeah, I actually played in both those leagues. So the Elite League and I play in the one in Ontario right now, and I actually got asked to play in the Senior AAA League. So all those leagues are pretty they're pretty good for players who still value like the competitive part of hockey, but don't have a whole lot of time to play and to dedicate to it. Because the pro league in Quebec, it's you still have to dedicate time to practice. Unless you're one of the elite players that they're just going to let play games, but usually you have to practice, and it's far, like the games are far, you really have to travel a lot. So you don't, for guys who don't really have the time like me to do it, the senior leagues are the perfect option. You play once, maybe twice a week, but usually just once a week. And that's good enough. It's competitive hockey. It kind of gets your fix once a week. So,
and I'll be honest, I love small town hockey, and that's where junior hockey falls into small town hockey because it's just fun when you get the whole community together in a small rink to watch a nice junior or senior hockey game. Like I do like the East Ontario Senior Hockey League, the league you play in for Glengarry Pipers.
mm-hmm.
You got some good players in that league that people don't know. Like Brandon Sillick for Ganawaki Islanders. He's, I think, their captain still.
I haven't played against him, so I don't know, but he probably is. But yeah, he was very good. You get some guys that played like from high levels that are there, or I've seen like one guy. He played in our league. He went to the Fed, did well in the Fed, and he was in the SPI. I haven't kept track of him, but he kept like moving up the ranks. It's pretty cool out there, starting from like a senior league and then working their way up. Usually it's the opposite. They play their careers and then they come finish in the senior league just to play for fun. But you can see it both ways sometimes.
Yeah, like basically like the thing like I remember what got me into like senior hockey mostly was like when the Cornwall River Kings came into the league for the LNAH. Like I think Cornwall is a hockey town. Now they have a team called the Prowers in your league.
Mm-hmm.
And you also got that team, the Mustangs. You guys are playing tonight. That's right near Cornwall, next door, Long Soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just love hockey. Like seeing players you never heard of. And I'm always on Elite Prospects looking up those players. So I want to get to know more about them, their backgrounds, their hockey stats. And it's like interesting. Like some of them play midget AA, like midget AAA. Well, now it's called M18 AAA or AA.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, like, if you play M18 AA, could you still make a good career for your hockey career?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people get caught up if they get cut from the AAA team or something early on in their career. They think it's over. But actually, I got cut a bunch of times and I kept kind of pushing through. And I talked about in different videos all the different adverse things that happened to me. But if you keep pushing through and you believe that you're good enough, you can end up making, like, you have to be realistic, but you can end up, making a decent career for yourself. And I've seen some guys get cut from, from AAA, end up playing AA. The next year, like they train really hard, they come back, they play AAA. Their second year, they end up getting drafted somewhere, and then they end up going play for a team, and they do really well. So I could give you a bunch of different stories. Actually, there's one guy, he got cut from his AAA team, ended up going to play prep school. He wasn't really seeing much of the prep school. He was doing okay, and then he played in one tournament, and he was a defenseman. He got a hat trick in 2 consecutive games in a tournament. Got seen by an NHL scout. I think it was Philly. He got drafted 5th round by Philly, like out of nowhere. It was ridiculous. And then like before that, like no junior teams really wanted him. He was doing okay in prep school and stuff. He got drafted by Philly somehow. Then he got signed in the USHL and he got committed to NCAA D1. And this kid was good, but he wasn't anything spectacular. But sometimes it's the right opportunity. If you keep putting the work in, sometimes you can get a break. So it doesn't mean that's always going to happen with kids. But if you get cut, don't let that completely, ruin you. Keep pushing forward, and good things can happen if you have some resilience and keep pushing through.
Exactly. You never know in the hockey world. But like also, I want to know about like these independent junior leagues you're hearing, like the new one coming out, the Naha, actually owned by Dustin Tarlin, the owner of Brockville Braves. I watched that video, like one of your advisors would talk about, or probably you, about the Naha. Like, tell me more about like those independent junior leagues.
Yeah, yeah. So you have to be careful with a lot of them, especially if they're new, because you don't know, what kind of exposure they're going to have. You don't know what the caliber is going to be. Some of the independent leagues, I mean, I've dropped names before. I don't want to bash on leagues, but there's a particular one in Ontario that's called themselves Junior A, but it's really not a good league to go to. So you have to be careful with it. For the Naha, like, so back when I made the videos over a month ago, I thought it was going to be like, it's going to be a decent idea, but now more and more as I see it go on, like they still don't have a website up. A lot of these, like I've talked to them actually a couple of weeks ago about it, and a lot of these teams, they don't seem to have like enough players to get it going and stuff. So I don't know really what it's going to look like. I always tell people if you go to a league that's been proven to have success, go to teams that have proven to move, like to have good caliber and move guys on. And these leagues here that are more like new or independent, use them more as a backup option if you have, nothing else that's really better. But yeah, as like time goes on now, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with this Naha league, just because no website, no clear schedule, like it's kind of a question mark.
And every day I'm asking Dustin or the guys from the league, what do you guys play schedule? I want to see a game, see the cover. They already played the game already. I think it was 2 games. West Island Islanders versus Brockville Braves, Junior Braves, actually, if I may say.
Yeah.
and they already announced their captains, assistant captains for the West Island Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I want to know, like, basically, like, those leagues are not leagues to go to if you want to go NCAA.
Probably not at this point. Maybe in a couple years it'll develop and turn into something good. But for now, if your goal is to play NCAA in advance, you're probably best to go to like the list of leagues that we ranked and go to those. Like try and go to the highest one on that list where you're gonna get ice time. And then if you really can't really get to one of those leagues, like maybe a good team on the USPHL Premier, that could be the cutoff. If you can get a good team there, then you could start thinking about leagues like Naha and independent leagues and stuff, but you're best to try and make the higher leagues first.
Now, what about the NCAA? Like, you got Division 3, you got Division 1, and then you got these other divisions and, like, independent university teams. I want to know more about that. Like, I know the difference of D1 is stronger than D3. What about the other leagues, like the ACHA?
Yeah, no. So how it typically goes is D1's the highest, and then you have NCAA D3. You have D2 that's kind of fit in there. D2 and D3, like D2 is like its own little conference, but it's about equivalent to mid-end D3, I would say. The high-end D3s are better than the D2s.
Yep.
D2s can't compete in championships. So those kind of go hand in hand. After D3, you have ACHA D1, D2, D3. ACHA D1, the top programs are actually quite strong, and they could compete against the low to mid NCAA D3 programs. They're very, very strong, some of them. And then at ACHA D2, maybe the top 10 to 15 programs are actually pretty decent caliber. And then after that, it kind of drops off. The bottom, like the low, mid to bottom ACHA D2, not very strong. And then ACHA D3, for the most part, not very strong either. So I'd say like if your goal is to play pro afterwards, you at the very least want to play for a high-end ACHA D1 team. But even then, it can be tricky. I would say if you can get to a mid to high-end NCAA D3 team, that solidifies your chances to play actually in a decent pro league.
Now, what about MAT AAA? Like, I want to know, like, I always wanted to know the ranking of those leagues across Canada, like out of every province, because you got different skill out of each province league for M18 AAA. Like, people say the Saskatchewan League or the Quebec League are like one of the highest leagues. Even some Ontario teams are higher. Like, I never heard rankings about those leagues.
Yeah, it's tricky to rank them because they're all like kind of close, and it some teams are good in some leagues, other teams aren't so good. I would say overall the best one's probably the Quebec one. The Quebec one's very, very strong when it comes to M18. When it comes to minor midget, the GTHL in Toronto, in the Toronto area, that's probably the strongest one. But the major midget GTHL isn't as strong, not nearly as strong as the minor midget one, if you like take age out of the factor. But overall, like the M18 teams in Quebec would probably be stronger than the GTHL minor midget teams, just because you got older guys on there. There's some in other provinces that are good, like Eastern Ontario is pretty good too.
Yeah.
But it really, again, it depends year by year, team by team. Some teams are pretty strong year by year, but some like are strong some years, not as strong other years. So it really, really depends. So it's, for me, I've never made a AAA ranking just because there's so many teams. It varies a lot, so it's hard to get some consistent results out of it.
Now, I know one of the top programs, like I said before, the Lac-Saint Louis Lions. They're one of the most known midget programs in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a lot of players that came out of that organization, like Jonathan Drouin, Michael Matheson, Anthony Duclair. You also got Louis LeBlanc, but yeah, we all know. But anyways, I want to know, like, what about M8, M16 AAA? Like, why in the OHL and the WHL, why do players get drafted out of Bantam over like M18?
Like you mean like why do Q teams decide to draft players when they're in Bantam over guys that are older and playing the M18 league?
No, the Q teams, I heard they draft players straight out of midget AAA.
Right. That's why I'm asking. So what do you mean about the Bantam?
Like, why in OHL or WHL they draft them younger ages than like in the Q?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact reason why, to be honest. I don't know if you'd have some insight with that, but I know that they do it, but I don't know why they do that system instead of doing older. To be honest, I think it'd be better to draft players when they're a little bit older. It would be nice because that way you see like how they're maturing and all that stuff. Because when you're getting guys that are really young at 13, 14 years old, they're so young and there's still so much room for development that you don't like there's a massive difference between a kid when they're 14 versus when they're 16, and then so on and so forth. So I think it makes more sense to draft guys when they're older. But
Yeah.
in terms of why they do it out west over the like out east here, I don't know actually.
Yeah, because there's like one example, the OHL player got Sir class, Sean Day. I saw him play for Syracuse Crunch before and Hartford Wolfpack. He was drafted as a 14-year-old, I believe, and he was supposed to be a top player, but he did not pan out in the OHL like they were expecting him to.
Yeah.
And he become a top pick in the NHL.
No, for sure. That's the danger of drafting guys young. Now there's some guys like McDavid, Tavares, like they get exceptional stats because you know from a young age you're going to be special. But for the most part, the older you can draft guys, probably the better.
Yeah, like I remember I used to see Joseph Valeno play for Lac-Sully Lions, and he was third class in mid AAA, and then he goes first overall in the queue because he was threatening the queue like he's gonna go NCAA if you guys don't third class me. And like I don't think Q teams should take advantage of that because I know the junior major wants the credit for the high drafted players.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the USHL? I know they have like the US developmental team in that league. Like, how good is that team in the USHL compared to all the USHL teams?
I mean, it's so in terms of skill, they're probably the highest. The reason why the other teams are competitive with them is because they got older guys. But the development team is very, very skilled. And you see guys like Hughes and all that played for that team. It's always the top end prospects. So it's almost unfair that they're playing like always older guys. Sometimes they play college teams and stuff. So they have really good competition with older guys, but overall you get the highest skilled players at that age group for that team.
Now, before we end this podcast, I just want like some advice from you. Which good advice you have for a player that wants to make a far in their hockey career?
So pretty open question, but I would say like the most important thing that I can think of right now is to build resilience from a young age. Because what the biggest difference between players I've seen pan out and those that don't are guys that can push through adversity and push through hard moments. And the earlier you like as a parent too, this advice for the parents out there, the earlier you can put a player through something hard and find a way for them to get through that, the better off they're going to be. I've seen time and time again players, always make the team, be the top go-to guys all the time when they're young on their AAA teams and everything. And then when it comes time to get to junior level, 16 or 17 years old, they get cut. It's the first time they ever got cut in their lives. They're devastated and they quit hockey or they just never come back the same. Whereas other players that, got cut a lot when they were young, they weren't the top players. They always worked hard and stuff. They instilled that work ethic. They instilled that resilience. And then, when it comes time to junior, they get cut by a team. It doesn't phase them. They go to another team, they get cut. They go to another team, they make it. They do well there. They go through a bunch of adversity. And then when they get to the college level, the pro level, anytime something happens, it doesn't phase them. Whereas other players are a little bit softer. So whatever you can do, like if you can do something that's hard every single day, that kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone every single time. So when the inevitable things that you can't control end up happening to you that are hard, you're able to handle them. So for me, the biggest message is just building resilience and going through adversity consistently. That'll really help you succeed in your hockey career.
Well, once again, I want to thank you, Braeden, for being on my podcast show. And hopefully we'll have you on again for another round, talk more about junior hockey.
For sure. Anytime then.
But anyway, fans, I want to thank you, Braeden, who is CEO of Achievement Hockey Advising. And I just want to say, tomorrow we'll be posting a new episode with one of the toughest and most entertaining hockey fighters ever, John Nasty Morasti, who I'm really excited to have on my podcast show. Anyways, I want to wish you good luck in your game tonight. Hope you guys get the W.
Well, appreciate it.
Yeah. And yeah, just have a great day. And I hope all of you guys are having a great Thanksgiving, and stay tuned for tomorrow, and just stay happy and have a great weekend. Anyways, thank you for being on my podcast.
Right. Appreciate it.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.